The salt air clings to your skin like a secret you can't shake. Waves crash below, relentless, chewing at the cliffs of Capri as if the sea itself hungers for what hides above. A girl's scream slices the dusk, not wild, not free, but muffled, like cloth over a mouth. Footsteps echo on marble, hurried, the scrape of sandals on stone worn smooth by too many shadows passing. Torches flicker in the groves, casting faces half-lit, young, noble-born, eyes wide with the promise of festivals turned to traps. One stumbles, her veil catching on olive branches, the fabric ripping like a vow undone. Hands reach from the dark, strong, unyielding, the grip of men who serve an emperor's whim. She twists, whispers a name from Rome's old families, but the night swallows it whole. Higher up the path, a villa looms, its walls whispering back. This is no paradise. This is the machine awakening, and tonight, it claims its first. What you're about to hear involves sexual violence and the systematic abuse of the vulnerable, including the young from noble lines. These events, drawn from ancient accounts, are as disturbing as they are documented. If this pulls you too close to the edge, step away, I'll understand. For those who stay, we trace the gears of power, not the splinters of pain. Let's uncover the works. Imagine Rome in the early days of empire, a colossus straddling the Mediterranean, its veins pulsing with legions, trade, and the quiet hum of bureaucracy that kept the whole beast alive. Augustus, the first true emperor, had forged it from civil war's ashes, roads snaking through provinces, aqueducts feeding cities, a senate that nodded along like a well-oiled hinge. But beneath that polish lay cracks, succession whispers, family feuds, the endless grind of holding power over millions who might one day turn. Enter Tiberius, the reluctant heir, a soldier forged in frontier mud, now draped in purple. This wasn't some fevered tyrant's fever dream. This was a machine of isolation, where one man's retreat to a sun-baked rock off Campania's coast exposed the empire's underbelly, unchecked authority twisting into something that devoured its own. On Capri, from 26 onward, Tiberius didn't just flee Rome's gaze, he built a mirror for his shadows, drawing in the empire's brightest blooms to feed the dark. Why does this echo now? Because power's retreat isn't escape, it's amplification. And when the doors close, the screams find new ways to linger. Long before the groves of Capri echoed with muffled cries, Tiberius walked paths far bloodier. Born in 42 BC to a patrician line tangled in Rome's civil wars, he grew under the shadow of his stepfather, Augustus, the man who tamed chaos into calendar. Picture a boy in the forum, ears pricked to senators' debates, while his real classroom was the Rhine's foggy banks. By 20, he commanded legions against Alpine tribes, his blade carving order from barbarian haze. Victories piled like trophies. Rhaetia pacified, Armenia bent to Roman will. He was the empire's steady hand, the general who mourned his brother Drusus's death in the German wilds, carrying the body home over 1,000 miles on his own horse. Augustus called him son, adopted him into the Julian fold, even as whispers circled too grim, too brooding for the purple. But the machine didn't start with vice. It hummed in the fractures. Tiberius's first wife, Vipsania, daughter of Agrippa, was the light he lost. Married young, they shared a son, Drusus the younger, before Augustus demanded divorce for political glue wed Tiberius to his own daughter, Julia, the widow of 2 heirs-to-be. Julia, wild-spirited, feasted, while Tiberius fasted in disgust. He caught sight of Vipsania once in the street, her belly swelling with another man's child, and collapsed in tears, begging to reclaim what the emperor had pawned. Augustus forbade it, chaining duty to heartbreak. That scar festered. Exile followed, voluntary, to Rhodes, a scholar's isle, where Tiberius starved himself thin, honing Greek verse while Rome forgot him. Returning a decade later, hollow-eyed, he donned the mask again. Triumphs, consulships, the grind of governance. The political air thickened like storm clouds over the Tiber. Augustus aged, his grandson's dead poisoned plots or fever, the whispers varied. Tiberius, the spare, became the princeps in AD 14, at 56, inheriting an empire at peace but paranoid. Legions swore oaths, provinces sent grain, yet the Senate's flattery grated like sand in a wound. He shared power uneasily, executing plotters with a jurist's precision, Germanicus's friends, his own son Drusus, starved in a praetorian cell by a favorite's hand. Paranoia wasn't madness. It was the emperor's arithmetic, tallying threats in every shadow. Sejanus, the prefect with eyes like polished obsidian, rose as his right arm, feeding reports from Rome while Tiberius eyed the horizon. That spring of AD 26, the machine turned. Augustus's old villa on Capri called a speck of rock, cliffs plunging to foam, accessible only by one hidden cove. Tiberius crossed with a fleet, leaving Sejanus to mind the wolf pack. For health, the dispatches read. For silence, the winds carried truth. The island, once a poet's retreat, became his forge. Villas sprouted like tumors, 12 in all, but Villa Jovis crowned the rest, perched on Monte Tiberio, its terraces drinking the sun while cisterns gulped rain to slake hidden thirsts. Staff swelled hundreds, from cooks to couriers, ferrying scrolls from Misenum's base. Here, formative echoes resurfaced. The boy denied his love. The general starved of trust, now emperor absolute. Trauma didn't excuse. It explained the levers pulled. No wild orgies at first, just quiet expansion. Groves trimmed into nooks, bowers draped in vine where figures in Pan's horns and nymphs' sheer drifts waited. An erotic library grew. Scrolls unrolling scenes no forum dared voice. Paintings, lined walls, gods in mortal tangles, lovers defying gravity. Tiberius, graying, sought sparks for embers, but the machine demanded fuel. Scouts scoured Campania's villas, noble houses yielding daughters and sons under guises of honor festivals, audiences, betrothals that soured. They arrived by skiff at dawn, veils drawn, hearts light with imperial favor. The air hummed with lyres, the sea's hush a promise, yet doors locked and the groves claimed them. Breathe for a moment. Notice how the island fools you still lemons, ripening gold against azure, paths winding like lovers' arms. Capri sells postcards of bliss, but wander those cliffs today, and the wind carries an old chill, as if the stone remembers. And then, the first refusal cracked the air. Mallonia, barely past her 18th summer, came from a consular line, her father, a senator who'd toasted Tiberius at Saturnalia feasts. She was no fragile bloom, hair coiled like dark serpents, eyes that held the forum's fire, dreaming of a match to some young eques, not this shadowed court. Her days before, mornings in the atrium, reciting Ovid's elegies with sisters, afternoons weaving garlands for household lairs, evenings at banquets where she laughed too freely, drawing glances she parried with wit. Noble blood ran true. She carried it like a shield, unspoken but steel, sent to Capri as lady-in-waiting to the emperor's household honor. They called it her ship docked under a harvest moon, the crew's jests masking unease. The villa's heart pulsed with routine, baths steaming with Campanian herbs, triclinia laid for dawn meals of figs and honeyed wine. Mallonia moved through it, veiling courtesy over caution, her tunica brushing marble cool as a lover's doubt. Tiberius noted her the way she tilted her head at recitations, her voice threading Horace's odes like silk. At 68, he was no brute in form, lean from soldier's habit, face etched with campaign's maps. But his gaze lingered, appraising, like a collector eyeing flawed ivory. A private audience followed, summons sealed with his ring. "Join me in the grove," the note read, scented with myrtle. She went, pulse steady, reciting inwardly the virtues of Lucretia, that ancient wife who'd chosen death over stain. The confrontation unfolded slow as dusk. Under arbors heavy with grape, torches guttered low, shadows pooling like spilled ink. Servants withdrew discreet, practiced leaving air thick with jasmine's lie. Tiberius reclined on cushions, a scroll unrolled on his lap, verses praising forbidden fruits. "The gods envy us mortals this," he murmured, gesturing to the star-pricked sky. Mallonia stood, spine straight, offering pleasantries on the harvest's yield. His words shifted, coiling, compliments on her grace, then bolder, a hand extended not for wine but wrist. "Stay. The night is young." Refusal came soft at first duty to her house, the proprieties of rank. His face hardened, not rage but calculation, the general weighing odds. Rome's daughters served the state in all ways. She pulled back, voice rising like a tide. "Not as chattel, Caesar. Honor binds me elsewhere. The air stilled, a nod, and guards materialized, silent as mist. What followed blurred into implications fog. No blade, no scream, etched in stone, just the machine's quiet grind. Mallonia vanished into inner chambers, days bleeding into nights where lyres played on, masking echoes, whispers among the staff, a physician summoned, veils burned in haste. She emerged, changed, hollowed, eyes that once sparked, now veiled in storm. Tiberius turned away, already scanning horizons for fresh canvas, but word trickled slaves' tongues to couriers to Sejanus's ears in Rome. This wasn't dalliance. This was the system's proof. Nobility's daughters, plucked like olives, their virtue the emperor's due. And in that proof, a parallel stirs even now, leaders retreating to compounds, their whims shielded by walls and NDAs, the powerful always finding ways to rewrite consent as tribute. Curiosity tugs, but one girl's stand wasn't the spark that lit the island aflame. What came next would redraw the groves in blood. Shift now to the water's edge, where perspectives bend like light on waves. Not the victim's chamber, but the dispatch room, scrolls piling like accusations unanswered. Sejanus paced there, in Rome's shadowed halls, his toga crisp as a blade's edge. Tall, aquiline, the prefect had risen from equestrian stock to Tiberius's shadow, handling the praetorian's iron fist, while the emperor savored salt breezes. Letters arrived by trireme, thrice weekly, requests for marble from Carrara, youths from senatorial lists, virgins noted for their untouched bloom. Sejanus read them aloud to aides, voice flat as a ledger. The Caesar requires purity for his rights. No judgment, just execution. Incentives hummed beneath. Promotions for discreet captains, estates for loyal scouts. The machinery spread like ivy networks from Neapolis to Brundisium. Informants in every bath's house, tallying noble daughters by lineage and age. From Capri's coves, ships ghosted in at moonless tides, holds heavy with the empire's promise. Whole villas emptied in a night, a merchant's widow watching her last girl board, hands clasped in futile prayer, a bishop from the eastern provinces murmuring blessings over veiled forms, his own son among the tribute. Numbers blurred into human weight, dozens in the first months, then scores, families hollowed like gourds, not slaughter, but erasure. Innocents fed to the emperor's ennui, bodies returned as warded ladies, spirits adrift. One brief glimpse pierces the veil, a boy from Umbria, barely bearded, tasked with Pan's role in the groves. He played the part, horns askew, flute trembling, until the nymph's calls turned real. Dawn found him wandering the cliffs, tunic torn, whispering of the old goat's garden, the island's name twisted into curse. Breathe here, amid the spread. Irony lingers in the details. Tiberius, that stern moralist, banning actors from Rome's stage for lewdness, now scripting his own farces on Capri's green. A quiet human touch, a slave girl braiding another's hair by lamplight, humming lullabies from home, the sea's roar drowning their homesick sighs. Contrast sharpens, azure skies mocking the shadowed nooks, lemons bursting sweet while virtue soured below. The escalation crested not in frenzy, but fracture. Sejanus's reports grew edged Senate murmurs, a consul's wife vanishing too publicly, her kin demanding audience. From the prefect's view, it was logistics cracking, shipments delayed by storms, whispers of resistance in the provinces. He penned back, urging restraint, but Tiberius's seals grew erratic, ink smudged like fevered hands. The machine, oiled by isolation, overheated paranoia, feeding vice, vice birthing plots, real and imagined. What broke first? Not a victim, but the emperor's mirror. A face glimpsed in polished bronze, lined with years he could no longer outrun. But that wasn't the worst fracture. One command, whispered in a bath's steam, would summon the sea itself as witness. Time slows on those cliffs, the air thickening with salt and something fouler fears metallic tang. Dawn breaks reluctant over Villa Jovis, painting the east terrace rose, while below, the cove stirs like a beast rousing. Torches from night linger, smoke curling lazy into mist. Figures gather, guards in lorica segmentata, their faces masks of routine, a handful of guests, youths from last moon's levee, hollow-cheeked tunics loose on frames thinned by dread. The emperor emerges, toga discarded for a simple stola, feet bare on warm stone. At 69, his step falters less than his gaze sharp, appraising the general's eye-scouting flanks. Sejanus stands proxy, arrived by urgent galley, his presence a concession to Rome's pull. The rites demand purity, Tiberius intones, voice gravel over honey. The gods favor the unspoiled. Sensory tide rises, waves pounding rhythmic below, a counterpoint to quickened breaths. Olive oil's slick scent mingling with sweat, the grit of cliff dust underfoot. Mallonia's echo haunts not her, gone months now, but her kind. The latest cluster, noble virgins, 5 in count, veiled in white, trembling like aspens in breeze. They stand in arc, backs to the void, eyes downcast on marble veined like fate's map. One clutches a fibula, silver hair from her mother's gift, talisman against the fall. The confrontation builds, layer by layer. Tiberius's words first, poetic lure of divine favor, then demand join the grove's dance, seal empire's bond. Refusals murmur, soft as surf, vows to hearth gods, pleas for kin's sake. Sejanus shifts, hand on hilt, his loyalty a chain. The peak unfurls deliberate, implications blade honed fine. No frenzy, just the machine's inexorable turn. Veils lift, one by one, faces pale blooms in torch glow. The emperor circles, touch light as judgment, a brush to cheek, a murmur in ear. Resistance flares, a hand bats away, a voice rises Caesar. This profanes us all. And the crack sounds. Guards close, grips iron, dragging toward the edge where path meets abyss. The leap of Tiberius, they call it later, cliffs shearing 300 feet to foam-fanged rocks. Screams build, not individual, but chorus. The seas roar, swallowing pleas. Bodies teeter, then arc-white tunics flowering against blue, plummeting silent till impacts hush. Marines wait below in skiffs, boathooks ready, ensuring no gasp returns. Tiberius watches, face unreadable, a scroll forgotten at his feet. The aftermath ripples instant, silence on terrace, broken only by gulls' mocking cries. Sejanus kneels, wiping spray from brow, his reports now laced with alarm. This overreach, this spectacle, risks the center. One ironic twist. The virgins, by law untouchable in death, defiled first in right's name, their fall, a sacrament to power's law. The system cracked not in compassion, but consequence. A courier's delay, a senator's bold query in Rome. Tiberius turned inward, baths growing hotter, groves denser, but the machine stuttered. Whispers crossed the strait, seeding doubt. What broke? The emperor's illusion of control. The victim's final gaze, etching guilt no wine could drown. From those heights, the fall mirrored wider. Tiberius lingered on Capri 2 years more, his dispatches thinning to ash. Sejanus, emboldened, wove his web in Rome, marrying into imperial blood, stacking praetorians with kin, poisoning Drusus the younger in his cell. But the prefect's ambition blinded him. Couriers bore back warnings of plots, real or sown. In AD 31, the tide turned Tiberius's seal on Sejanus's doom. Letters read aloud in Senate, "My son starves by your hand." The machine reversed, gears grinding kin by association. Sejanus's children throttled, his statues smashed, body dragged through streets by hook. Tiberius watched from afar, unmoved. But the purge hollowed his circle, favorites fled, staff culled. Power shifted jagged. Macro, Sejanus's successor, played loyal hound till Caligula's rise. The emperor returned to mainland in AD 37, aged 77, collapsing at Misenum's villa, rumored smothered by grandson's hand. Capri emptied, villas crumbling to ghosts, overgrown groves yielding only to goats, cisterns echoing empty, long-term scars. The Principate wobbled, Caligula's madness, a direct echo. Senate cowed deeper into flattery's rut. Ironic coda. Tiberius, the jurist who codified treason laws, birthed an era where accusation equaled ash his reforms, meant to steady, instead sharpen the blade for successors. Yet families endured, splintered but stubborn. A merchant's widow in Neapolis, her line thinned, rebuilt with trade. Eastern bishops penned codices preserving old rites, veils woven anew. The empire, that vast accounting, tallied on provinces blooming under quiet governors, legions holding frontiers. But the machine's shadow lengthened. Unchecked retreats bred unchecked heirs. Centuries buried the scars, but the island held secrets stubborn as limestone. Fast forward to 1906, when a Swedish doctor named Axel Munthe, exiled soul seeking solace, stumbled on Capri's heights. Not an archaeologist by trade, but a healer with poet's eye, he wandered Villa Jovis's ruins, torch in hand, unearthing cistern lips and mosaic shards amid brambles. "The stones cry out," he wrote in his memoirs, fingers tracing grooves worn by feet-long dust. But true revelation came decades later, in the 1930s, under Amedeo Maiuri's spade, the superintendent of Pompeii. Drawn by whispers of imperial bones, his team hacked through overgrowth, revealing not just walls but a labyrinth. Baths vaulted like temples, terraces cantilevered over void, the heart a warren of vats holding rain's memory. No lurid frescoes survived time's thief, but the scale spoke. Quarters for hundreds, nooks etched in cliff, the leap's edge scarred by modern railings. Maiuri's finds, catalogued in yellowed notebooks, proved the retreat real, no myth, but a fortress of seclusion. Inscriptions surfaced, dedications to Jupiter, the villa's patron, etched in marble now cracked. Pottery shards, imported from Gaul, hinted at feasts unending. Fish hooks bent in coves told of minnow games implied, not illustrated. These weren't trophies of vice, but blueprints of isolation, power's architecture, where one man's whim reshaped rock. Human touch lingers, a child's toy, terracotta hair, lost in a corridor, evoking the innocent's play before the groves claimed them. Why does this matter? Beyond dust and dates, it mirrors our own retreats, the compounds of the elite, screens shielding excess, where number Me Too whispers meet NDA's walls. Tiberius teaches that power's poison isn't the act, but the echo chamber. Isolation, amplifying flaws till virtue's just another levy. Resistance flickers in the margins Mallonia's stand, a widow's quiet rebuild, reminding that systems crack when one voice refuses the script. Human nature bends, but doesn't break clean. It warps, leaving us to map the twists. Return to that dusk on the cliffs. Waves gnawing, eternal. The girl's scream fades, but the sea hurls it back. Foam-flecked, unending, where veils tore, winds now whip wildflowers resilient, rooting in cracks. They were meant to vanish noble virgins, plucked for an emperor's whim, their names erased like footnotes in ledgers. But they didn't. Mallonia's fire smolders in Suetonius's ink, her kin's blood in senate rolls that outlasted tyrants. The grove stones, Maiuri's spade pulled, stand as witnesses, their silence louder than any cry. Archaeology and annals hoard their truths, the machine's gears, rusted but recognizable, and now they're here with you. Because you chose to listen to the system that birthed them, the echoes that outlive it. If this island's shadows stirred something in you, drop a comment below. What's the one historical machine you dismantle first? Your thoughts keep these stories breathing. Thanks for walking these cliffs with me.